Hi, everyone. I'm Dave.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to our Tech Over Coffee podcast. We're so excited to be sharing this podcast with you. And we are very thankful for Chipola College for sharing this beautiful studio with us for the podcast. There's so many resources on the main campus here in Marianna, Florida for Chipola College. We have the ability to study business topics, to work in lab environments, look at technology, and to share in podcasts together. This is quite exciting, Jeremy.
Yeah, to be able to get together, talk about some of our favorite ideas, some interesting, news of the day. I always love to be in here and kind of get that kind of stuff done.
Me too. So what do you have for us to start off with?
So today we're going to be shooting from the hip, and we're going to
Shooting
talk
from the hip.
Yeah, kind of like drawing out that phone and saying, "Hey, I wonder what's going on." So got a couple interesting things. We've got uh, Warren Buffett has made some interesting moves in the EV space. So going back a number of years ago, Warren Buffett made a large investment in a little-known Chinese electric vehicle manufacturing company called BYD. BYD is not really known outside of the U.S. as much, but it is one of those top three EV companies in China right now. You've got NIO, XPeng, and then BYD. BYD makes things like vans and small commuter cars, the stuff that is perfect sense in the Chinese market.
So wow, for Berkshire Hathaway to be on the ground floor of maybe the Chinese version of Tesla, that's powerful. And that's the same guy that said crypto isn't real. I mean, so how does he put his research in some things?
He jumps around on a lot of different things, right? He's I don't know about this crypto stuff, but he's also never really been into even physical gold and silver. He wants something that makes money, and that's companies to him. So he looked at, I think, the scale of the electric vehicle marketplace, and a lot of people are wondering, well, why didn't he pick Tesla? And I think there's a lot more growth to be found in a lot of Chinese stocks these days, actually.
Wow, yeah. Think of all the opportunity in a big footprint like China, just what, a billion people, a billion plus people, and then to have access to Hong Kong and other locations with EV, that really could just change the market. So, it could be a more powerful play, even though Tesla could be still a leader in the EV space. To BYD, that could outpower them just by pure number.
Yeah, true. And it's just from the pure scale of it, right?
Yes.
And it's also different markets where Tesla is going after the more consumer space. I think BYD is more
Well, for
focused.
now, anyways.
Oh, yes, for now. There's a lot of, movements happening there, right? So it's an interesting move, and it's done a lot of good work for Berkshire Hathaway now because they're having to make up for a tumultuous year, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but I still probably keep some money in their pocket. I still visit Dairy Queen every now and then, and that's part of their portfolio.
That's an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
To have that scale where you're invested not only
Geico.
I'm going to invest in car insurance. I'm going to invest in actually the companies that build the cars. I'm also going to invest in the places that people go to in those cars.
Right. And then I bought a railroad company a few years ago. So
Yeah, right.
it's too bad if he embraced crypto. I think you might be. We could be talking about Warren Buffett every week, but now we kind of drag our feet whenever we're supposed to.
Just Warren Buffett's. He's seen a lot of things. He's done a lot of things, but he's not always right.
True. Even recently, the tech companies have been proving him wrong. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of that, staying with the EV topic, I heard there may be a new richest man in the world. Did we kind of tease the audience a bit last time with
I
that?
think we did, and it's funny because that's.
Is he a space guy or something?
It's going back and forth. We've got two
They're both space guys.
They're both space guys doing space things, and also Earth things at the same time, right? And there's a lot of crossover here. For anybody that doesn't know, we're talking about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, two super rich, big CEO guys, right? And they're competing very closely on being the richest man in the world. They're jumping back and forth depending on the day and depending on the stock moves.
Right. Jeff Bezos with Amazon, already a $1 trillion company, and he's majority, big-time majority owner of that. So I think he's close to being a trillionaire. Elon Musk, just personally for Jeff, his company, I was just looking a couple days ago with Tesla, they are almost a $1 trillion company. They were, $800 billion or so just the end of last week. So that, with all the stock that Elon owns in Tesla, really propelled him, I think, just past Jeff just
Yeah.
recently. So
Oh, definitely. And you've got these other like up and coming investments too. And Tesla is making interesting innovations. They've announced a new solar inverter that they're actually making. And solar inverters, if you've not looked on the markets, have done very well over the last few years because it's something that the solar industry is expanding, right? So like you have to have inverters to convert the electricity. And Tesla's like right in line for that. They already make inverters for their cars. So they figured out a way to make this efficient thing, and that's helped the markets move as well. And so that's helping Elon's like wealth out as well.
So he's working on trying to do a new molding process, manufacturing process for a body of a vehicle, and where you'd place the battery components. And we looked at that like in the front, I think, of the vehicle. We actually saw some footage of that and brought some still pics in a recent podcast. So if they brought solar panels or solar components, any idea where that'd go in the car? And that could change what he's already changing. I mean, that just blows
Yeah.
someone's mind if you think about that.
It would be a bit of effort, right? Like you have to have the solar panels that are going to be efficient enough. It'd be easy to place them along the roof, on the hood, stuff like that. There have been concepts done by a number of different companies on that. But a matter of like if they're going to do that, I don't know. I mean, Tesla does have solar roof tiles, right, for homes and other businesses. So it's not too far fetched, but the fact that they're expanding out into other solar technologies, because as with a lot of things with Tesla, it's very vertically integrated. So previously they were buying their inverters from other companies, and now they're producing them on their own.
Right. So he's changing that whole logistics model of having to outsource. Even Amazon's doing that. Many of the leading tech companies are trying to own the entire, from cradle to grave, and that's going to change the marketplace. And maybe someone like Warren Buffett, who owns railroads, that could change the need for them as much in the future. Or FedEx, UPS, if you actually have EV delivery systems, that could change their big foothold on deliveries. So, and the FAA just, boy, was it last week, a week before, very recently, since our last podcast, just approved drone flights within under 400 feet, I think, but it has to be in rural and specialized areas. It can't be in urban areas quite yet. So to me, that's a first step for delivery. But
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a very big deal because, I mean, pretty soon we're going to have drone deliveries. And that could be good because you could have electric drones.
most certainly,
Right.
sometimes when I want a pizza, I mean, yeah, it has to be pretty fast.
When I want to order my pizza and pay with Bitcoin and have it delivered directly to my window
That's
with
right.
a drone,
Oh,
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
That's-
You're just
that's my
sticking it
dream.
to Warren Buffett right now.
Yeah, he's missing out. He really
Right,
is.
right.
But the way Warren looks, I can call him Warren. We're friends like that, I think. The way
Our
that
podcast is informal.
yes, the way that
Mr. Buffett Warren, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Buffett Warren. The way that he approaches a lot of things is it's an aversion to risk, I think, and it's because his money, he has a lot of money that they handle, right? I mean, I think it's trillions of dollars that they handle. It's large amounts of money. They can't go and put it into something that could just explode overnight because that could be billions of dollars evaporated. So I can understand not getting into Bitcoin until it's, a $500 billion.
For a coin?
Yes, per coin. I mean,
Well,
that's,
it was $40,000 just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it was even 30, I think, just yesterday when I looked.
It's a bit more affordable these days, but that's how it goes. You just have, I think, right around inauguration when the world didn't implode, Bitcoin was like, oh, I better reduce my price.
So we have the tech companies booming. If you look at the history of the stock market, it seems when one party, say in this case the Democratic Party, but when either party has the presidency, the White House, Congress, and the Senate, the stock market doesn't seem to like that. It likes some competitive, keeping things even keel. And right now it's all Democratic. And so the stock market, even though it had a rally, is kind of staying. I haven't looked at it yet today. I'll look at it here while we're talking. And but the tech companies are still booming.
Yeah, it only makes sense, right? What we're having is an explosion of a new market, and we have a lot of innovation. And what happens with the markets over time is that you have things that have previously exploded, like, say, the railroads. Railroad markets at one point were a booming market. And at some point, they kind
When
of
was that? 1800s?
oh, it's when they were building them. I
Oh,
think.
okay, right.
Yes. So there's a lot of money in building railroads.
right.
Once they're built, then
Right.
it's just maintenance and cost.
Right.
But there is a lot of effort that goes into that, right? And a company that once it's reached its peak tends to slow down a little bit. And so you see that with a lot of these companies, right? Like our tech companies now are going through this boom cycle. And at some point that will kind of slow down, but probably not until we have the next big innovation for everybody to jump into. It's some funny stuff that's really going on with the markets, I think, because we've got a lot more access these days to financial datas and just views from different people, right? I'm not sure if you've seen this, but we have some short sellers on the market that have lost some big money on a little company called GameStop.
Oh, yes, GameStop. Wow.
That is interesting to me.
Yes, yes. So I think it was yesterday, was just looking at that, read
Mm-hmm.
something in the Wall Street Journal, and I think the current line of how the stock was doing was straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And who would have thought GameStop, you're like, oh, that's not going to survive. And all of a sudden, PlayStation 5? I mean,
Well,
it's just.
I think what it is, it's so there's been some speculation on there's a subreddit on a website called Reddit that is called Wall Street Bets, and you've had a lot of people that there are some very large people that were making negative bets against GameStop, making short sells, right? So they're borrowing money to sell GameStop stock in the expectation that it will lower.
Right, because on the surface, you think that business model isn't going to really
Well,
last.
GameStop is not exactly the best company in the world, right? Like, hey, bring in my new $50 game. I'll give you $5 for that and immediately resell it for 50.
It's just they're accessible, so they have what's in
Yes,
demand
it's true.
right down the block.
But they're also a company that's kind of being beat out by the digital market, right? Like, who's
You would
really-
think so,
Who's
yes.
really going to buy physical games?
Right.
A lot of things now you actually can't buy them physical. With Nintendo, a lot of Nintendo games you really can't actually buy
But you
physical.
still need the PlayStation itself.
You still need the console, right? Yeah, but I mean, there are other companies. There's Amazon.
That's
that
right.
they're really
You can have it
competing
delivered,
with,
yeah,
right?
by a drone maybe soon.
Yeah, possibly. But GameStop's like all in your local town mall or whatever. But so GameStop was kind of on a downward trajectory. Then all of a sudden, it just starts going up, and it's a short squeeze has happened, I believe. You've got people that basically every one of those short bets have been beaten out. It's up 500% for the year.
Yeah, it's a straight line up. I don't know if I've ever seen such a lineup.
It's ridiculous.
It is. Yeah, I was just
It's-
yesterday.
We're living in a funny market because things are happening in ways that the market's not used to. It's not normal for a company to raise 500% in a year. That would take 10 years or more, right?
If at all, right.
Yeah. So, but we've had this happen multiple times now with Tesla, with Apple, with Amazon, like these tech companies, and I guess GameStop can be included. I don't know, but
So could you think that we're in a different era, for example, with the technology, and you mentioned access, railroads, they really were just good at building railroads, and they necessarily didn't take a step back and say, where's the data, what kind of information, how can we make sense of this and apply it? Seems like the technologists today are doing that. You know, they're not
Yes.
waiting, they're not sitting back like, you know, the example you used like a railroad company back in the day. They're trying to push the envelope. Just look at space, you know, with Amazon, with Blue Origin, and with SpaceX, with Tesla. They're just pushing the envelope
Yeah.
faster than we even can think about it. Maybe that'll be different. You
Yeah,
know, maybe
and-
there won't be a bust.
there might not be because it could be an unlocking, right, of an amount of wealth and access
Knowledge,
that's there,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're creating a new market, it is actually creating new wealth, right? Because if you're going and creating something that wasn't there before, like making the railroads, that's a huge amount of money and opportunities that have opened up. When you're building, space internet with SpaceX, actually, like Starlink's internet is going to be something.
It's going to be
that's-
like the railroad. It's
it's-
going to change
yeah,
how we get.
the railroad of the internet.
That's right.
Covering the entire
The world,
globe.
right?
Yeah.
Not just the continent.
And they've actually just did something very interesting with the way that they do these rockets, the space trains, if they were right. You actually had a huge number of different. I think they did 100 or so different small satellites all at once, and then at the same time dropped out 10 Starlink satellites into a polar orbit. It's meaning it's going in a different way than all the other satellites.
Right.
It's pretty interesting because they were able to do that at practically no cost because the entire satellite or the entire rocket launch was paid for by these 100 different companies.
That is exciting. Just to think about, it's a perfect example about how they're trying to use technology to open up new doors, solve new or existing problems, and push that envelope, looking for solutions. So that continues to strike me. Just
Hmm.
with like Facebook, stepping into crypto a little bit and coming back. So they're each trying to look at different angles and different opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
So fantastic, Jeremy. We have some great topics to continue with. These have been challenging times. We've had some holidays,
Hmm.
and it's great to kind of have our momentum back.
Yeah, it's good to get back in the swing of things talking about tech.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
Hmm.